As promised, Good Morning Kenya gets to continue, and right now we get into another conversation, and we are talking about the impact of imprisoned mothers on their children. Yes, that is the conversation we'll be having right this very moment. And with me in studio is one Miriam Washira. Miriam is the founder and executive director, Justice Nest. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on board. If we can just begin by you telling us a bit, something about Justice Nest.
All right, thank you. Justice Nest is an organization that runs two programs. Mm-hmm. One program is a mothers and children diversion program. Mm-hmm. We are looking to remove mothers from the criminal justice system. Mm-hmm. The mothers who are arrested and imprisoned, helping them to get out of the system, helping the court to think, is it a must to imprison this mother? Mm-hmm. Is it a must that she goes to prison, or is there an alternative route? Mm-hmm. So we are looking to alternative to prosecution. We are looking at alternatives to imprisonment. So looking and helping the court ask, what is bringing this mother into the justice system? So that's one of our programs. The other program we run is within prisons, where we train inmates and prison officers as paralegals, and then we open for them legal offices within prison, mm-hmm. and they serve the bigger population, prison population. And that's because over 90% of our prison population cannot afford a lawyer. Yeah. So we say for justice to be fair, for a judge to be able to make a fair decision, they need to hear both sides of the story. So we help the inmates, especially those on pre-trial, to prepare for their cases, to be able to speak to the judge in court. Yes.
And this conversation is almost in line with what we were just talking about, when we were talking about mediation just a couple of minutes ago. Because I'm imagining the program that you're talking about, you try and look, does this mother really need to be, imprisoned for what they do? Some things maybe could have been mediated and they didn't really need to go to someone fighting over small things. Maybe, yes. There's an example you had given me before we came on set. Two women were fighting over a clothesline and one is in prison.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we are saying, we're looking at mostly when you go into our prisons, for women especially, they're on very petty offenses, issues that should not actually end up in prison. So they are small matters. For instance, most of them are interpersonal matters, and also most of the offenses that women are committing are related to poverty. So you find almost, I would say 70% of the offenses are on stealing. Why stealing? It's because of the need. It's where we have pushed them as a society, that they're not able to afford things. So they start stealing as a means of survival. And these are also mothers. So the other thing is that for those who are in prison, almost 90% are single mothers. And they're on stealing charges. So we are starting to ask, what is causing so many mothers to end up in prison on such petty offenses? And what is the solution? Is it a must they be in? Are there things that we can solve as a society without imprisonment? So for instance, if a mother lacks skills to make a proper earning, when we take them to prison, is it a solution? Or can we work to connect them with a skills training so that they are able to get a skill and then they can earn a decent living to support their family? Yeah. Yes.
All right. Now, even as we get to talk about the impact that it has on their children, these mothers are in prison, the impact it has on their children. There are also the children who are in prison with their mothers. There are children who are born in prison. Their mothers went in while they were expecting, and now they get to be born in prison. Under what circumstances does a mother go to prison with a child, for those who are not born in there?
So according to our practice and our laws, a child who is below 4 years still needs their mother. So they end up in prison with their mother. So it's not compulsory, but if you have no one to leave your child with and they're below 4 years, you can go to prison with them. So they stay in prison until they're 4 years. After they hit the age of 4, they're either released to a relative. If there are no relatives, then they are released to a children's home. Yes.
I can only imagine, the impact on that particular child. Maybe it's a 4-year-old little boy or little girl. the environment they get to grow up in, you know, where exactly do they stay? Are they behind the bars with the mother, or are they somewhere where the mother can be going to check on them? Like, how does that look like?
So, so the child is not will not say that the child is in prison. It's just that they're accompanying their mother. But at the end of the day, they are within the prison's environment. So they have their mother's ward, which are within prison. During the day, they get a break. They go to the daycare as their mothers go for other duties and so on. So for them, the most impact is when now they leave. Because the other thing we say, there's a lot of attention on these children when they're in prison. Remember, most of the mothers don't have their children. So there's a lot of attention from the prisoners themselves, but also from the public and the officers. And then all of a sudden they're released to a relative maybe who is not interested. That's a shock for them, you know, that they are no longer able to access. When you go somewhere like Langata Women, there are plenty of toys and so many people bringing different things to take care of these children. But when they leave prison, who follows up with them to ensure that they're okay and what happens to them? And then we have those children who are left at home when their mothers came into prison. Who are they left with? In court, when a woman comes in, they're just read for the charges, the offenses. We don't hear the court asking, did you have children? Who did you leave your children with? And when I go to prison, most of the women will tell me, before you give me legal assistance, could you help me trace my children? When I was arrested, I was arrested at road, at work. I didn't have a chance to go back at home and arrange for childcare for my children. So they are left alone. So the question is, who are they left with? These are the children who will end up dropping out school. They will end up in the streets. They will end up the same children who might end up within the justice system because of this lack of care. So the impact of imprisoning a mother, and especially a single mother, is so huge and have a great impact on the children.
Remember, you can also get to be part of this conversation. If you have a message, if you have a question that you would love to ask, you can do that via our WhatsApp line. That is 0716 103 301. 0716 103 301. We'll be happy to read your comments or questions. Now, you know, someone may counter what you're saying and say that an offense is an offense. You know, the court does not need to ask, are you a mother first? You know, who have you left your children behind with? Because one would argue, before you did the offense before you made the offense that you made, you should have thought about your children before doing it. You should have thought, what if I get imprisoned? How will they live? How would you answer that?
I'll say, why are we punishing the child then? Why are we putting the child at risk just because the mother offended? So we're not saying that we totally forget about the offense. We are saying, as we look at the offense, can we also think about the children and the impact it will have? As a society, for instance, one of the matters I've been handling is for this lady who they just quarreled. She's Mama Kibanda. Another lady came and they quarreled. And all of a sudden, she's been in prison for 4 months. Was that a big enough thing to make her spend all this time in prison? What is the impact you're having on her children? Are they going to school? Are we not creating even a bigger problem? In the name of solving this, what you're calling offense, are we not creating even a bigger problem in the society? So we're just saying, can we start focusing what we are calling people-centered justice, so that we just don't look at the offense, but we think you as a person. What are all these other circumstances that led you to this? And is there a way of solving it? And we are not saying just go scot-free. We are saying, are there ways that we can actually undo this harm done without necessarily harming the children as a consequence of what we think that the mother did? Yes.
Yeah. What's the best solution to such? You know, like, what should be done? Yes, this mother committed this offense. It's an offense that requires her to go serve maybe 3 years, 4 years in prison. What could be the solution? Probably they have no one to look after their children back at home. Maybe there are no relatives who are willing to do that or able, because sometimes you may be willing, but you're not able to do that. What should be some of the solutions that should be provided for such a case, you know, to such mothers?
So what we are saying is, could we look for alternatives? So for instance, rather than prosecuting her and taking her the court process, can we think, what brought her in? what is the problem? You'll find a mother who is charged with maybe child neglect. They left their child in the house, they went to work. Really, is that a crime to put them in? You have already now created even bigger problem. Is to help her rethink her life around what is the problem here? How can I be a better mother, still go provide economically, but also be present for my child? Is there an alternative? Is there a way to support? Because most of the women are ending up in prison because of lack of support. One of our clients spent 4 months in prison because she could not afford 3,000 bill. So that tells you that this is a lady who is in so much other needs. If for 4 months there was not even a family member who could support her with 3,000, imprisoning her just makes the situation worse. By the time she's coming, she lost the little job she had, she has lost any connections she had, she has lost her house, the children are already all over, already very traumatized. It becomes even hard for her when she gets back to the society to bring it together. So we are saying prison should be the last resort. And when you look into a prison, they're already overflowing. We are at double capacity. So why do we still want to imprison more people? And especially when they are not what I would call career criminals. It's just a one-off time, you know, petty offense. You find there are quite a number of now house helps, former house helps, I would say, in prison. Why? Because they took shoes when they were leaving, they carried the madam's shoes or clothes and so on. Do you want them in prison? Unless they're career, you know, criminals. But this is mostly needs and just things that we can correct. Others are because of mental health issues. You know, when a mother is suffering from a mental health challenge through maybe like depression or prenatal, you know, depression, when we take them to prison, is that a solution? It's not a solution. So we're first thinking, can we sort out the problem? What is the cause root of the problem? So that we do not have so many people in prison and in fact affecting the children, impacting on the children.
Do we have spaces where these children can be taken to? Are there available spaces in this country where if this mother has gone to prison, probably the case that they have is a case that they should be there, right? Do you have spaces where maybe these children can be taken to? Or do they end up in children's homes? And are there specific spaces where they can be here?
One of the things we say, the best would be foster care with family members. That is the ideal situation, but we know that that doesn't happen often. So the other solution is for them, they're taken to children's home. And yet as a country, we are saying we want to undo the institutionalization of children. So we are discouraging children being institutionalized. Yes.
So there are no specific places?
There are no specific places or homes for imprisoned mothers' kids. We do not have any specific institution for that particular, but the government children's home will take them in if they know that actually they exist. And that's what we want to bring to the attention, that when you're in prison, you probably left a child outside. And just helping the court and the system ask, was there a child who was left? Where are the children? What is happening to the child?
Let's get into the impact, you know. Let's look at the behavioral, you know, impact it has on some of these children. You know, some of them are teens, they're teenagers. So what impact does it have on their behaviors?
Very negative impact. One, we are saying already this child was having only one caregiver, a mother. The mother has been taken away, so they're left on their own. So one, because of the society stigma, you know, one of the child told us, you know, nowadays kids, the children in the school learned that the mother is in prison, and all of a sudden even the teachers, you know, keep on mentioning, you know, that the mother is in prison, and the kids are now making fun of him. And he says he no longer enjoys going to school. He doesn't want to go to school. He started missing school just because of this stigma that is coming with it. But also we find that when the mother goes to prison, then one of the child, especially the oldest, becomes the mother or the parent to the rest. So this becomes a child-headed home. And that brings in so much other issues, because one, even the younger ones, they're being taken care of by a child. So there's a lot of things that can happen. There's also a lot of abuse happening when the parents go, because maybe you have left teenagers that their own at home. Of course, some neighbors or some people will learn about it, and they will learn, oh, these kids have no one to answer to. And sometimes in the name of coming to help, the kids get abused. So we are creating a huge problem, impact. So the impact on the kids is really heavy, and that's why we are saying, unless it's absolutely necessary, let's not have a mother, and especially a single mother, in prison.
And you had mentioned that according to statistics, most of the women in prison, or the mothers in prison, are single mothers.
Yes.
So where are their children after that?
Yes.
You know?
So, and it's a bigger question to ask, why are the mostly single women in prison? It's because of lack of this society support. So they do not have someone to support. One of our clients, she is a single mother of 2. She was looking for school fees, and so she went hawking, and she was hawking something illegal, some illegal blue in town. She got caught, and so when she went in, her kids, she went in with one of the child, and the other one was left at home. So when we did an assessment on her, because as Justice Nurse we work holistically, so we offer the legal services but also the social services. So we have a social department. They did an assessment on her and asked, what is the problem? And then we learned, actually she's a very good hairdresser, and she can make hair. So we connected her with a salon that gave her a permanent job. And so she no longer has to go to the street. She no longer has to offend. Her kids now are in a stable place. She's in a stable place. So it's just that most of the women, and especially the single mothers, lack the support, the nest where they can be supported to take care of their children. Yes.
Yeah. There's some messages that have come in. One is asking, how do you help in tracing of children for the women who are imprisoned?
So we have a social department. It's not yet very huge, but one of the things we do is follow up. For instance, we'll ask, which police station arrested you? Do you have a phone call of a neighbor where you left the kids? Do you have a relative who would direct us or guide us? So that is the way we help to trace the children. Is their children's home? So sometimes it's really hard, because you go to the police station and they tell you, no, we arrested her on the road, we don't know about the children. And we have one case that actually we are trying to follow, and there's back and forth who has the children. And so far we have not been able to trace the children. So for that instance, one is to go to court and say, when the mother comes to court, is to ask the court to open what we call a protection and care file, so that we have it now documented that actually there are children who are missing, and somebody needs to take responsibility and look for them. So it's working with the system, and where the system fails, also we work with judiciary, where we ask the judiciary now to intervene and open this file, asking the children officer in the region to look for the children and come report back to court.
Is that already in place, the protection file? Is that something that is in place?
Not for children left at home. So recently, through the Children's Court, Milimani Children's Court, we opened, that was late last year, is when we opened the first files for protection and care files for children in prison with their mothers, so that the judiciary is also informed of their progress and so on. But we haven't looked into children who are left at home. There isn't any mechanism in place. It's unfortunate. One would think that something like that is already in place, you know. It looks like very basic, but it is not there. And as Justice Nurse, one of the things we are doing is to bring in policies and practices that look at a family and their child-centered, and looking at the gaps and just helping the system notice the gaps and work out something to work. And maybe to mention, even for when we talk about these diversion, this is not a new thing. We actually have very good policies. So it's not something new that as Justice Nurse we are bringing in. It's just that they have not been implemented. So we want to work with the system to make sure that we implement and women do not end up in prison unnecessarily.
Okay. All right. You can get to send in your comments or questions. The number is 0716 103 301, 0716 103 301. That's our WhatsApp line. You can send your message via WhatsApp. There's another message here. they're saying, how does the absence of a single mother due to imprisonment affect a child's development, particularly in terms of attachment? Yeah, I had a question on that too. Particularly in terms of attachment, academic performance, and their future relationships.
Yes, the impact is quite negative because one, they start having fear, you know, of that people will be taken away from them. So the fear of being left, you know, start growing right there, the fear of the society. They feel let down, you know. Some are left at their own, you know, there's no nurture. They are left to nurture themselves. When it comes to school level, you find that's where you find their complaints about, oh, there's school missing, they're missing classes, or they're absent-minded in class. Sometimes they lack school fees, you know, like one of our clients, our child, the issue is that they didn't get their last school report. Why? Because they had not paid the first term fees. So they were told, you pay, then we'll come give you your report form. So that starts affecting them, you know, where also the teachers and the children learn that the parent is in prison, you know, the stigma around it, you know, the comments people are making will affect them and how they grow, their self-confidence, you know, because they start having other extra labels that other children do not have, you know. You know, you're a child of an imprisoned mother. So the whole situation really affects them mentally, and especially their mental growth and their development. Yes.
Yeah, I can only imagine the impact it has on their emotional well-being altogether. You know, do they even have access to counseling services? Because it must be a lot for a young person to just be out here, you know, they don't have their mother, they know their mother is in prison, and the stigma, even from their own peers in school, they're told, wewe mama yako ako jela, or, you know, such remarks.
Yes, the emotions are really, like the emotional effect is very high. We visited, one of the things we do visit some of our clients' families at home, especially the children, because for us, the reason we are talking about mothers, we are saying mothers for children. So I'm doing this for children. And I am more of a children's advocate than even a women's advocate per se. But I'm saying for the children to be safe, then I need to work with the mothers. I need to ensure that they have caregivers. And so when we visit some of our clients, the children, you know, the first thing they ask you ask them, do you have a question for me? So I'll take them through the process, what's happening to your mother and what to expect. And I ask them, do you have any question? The only question they have is, mama atakuja lini? When is my mom coming back? You know, and some really feel very lonely, you know, they say, you know, yes, auntie is taking care of us, but would want to have our mother. But also the other thing we haven't even talked about is the effect of this imprisonment on the whole family. So you find like one of our clients, she has 2 children, she left. Fortunate for them, there's a sister, their aunt, who is their mother's sister, who took them in. But she also has 2 children. She's also a single mother. She lives in a single room. So all of a sudden in her house, she has 4 kids. She's alone. She has to fend for them. So the impact is so huge. And so even for these children who have come in, you know, they're feeling like we are taking up space for these other children this is their home, but now we have come to squeeze them. So there's a lot of emotional damage on the children and how they are growing up, and just missing their parents, you know, especially their mother, wondering why is it about me? Was it my fault? Maybe she went out looking, you know, for money and so on. Was it because of me that she ended up in prison and so on? So they carry the burden, and you know, they will go like the last one we visited, they said, you know, every day we pray for our mother. You can imagine if a child sits down to pray for you just to come out of prison. That's a huge burden on a young person. Yeah.
All right, allow me to read some of the messages. There's one here. Someone is saying, what if the woman committed murder and should be sentenced? Remember, there are single fathers too that are jailed. An offense is an offense, and no gender should be favored.
I totally agree. An offense is an offense, and we're not talking about favor. We are saying there's so many different ways of dealing with the offense. And can we deal with it in a way that as a society, we don't create bigger problem? And I've said, the word I'm using is that let's not imprison women unnecessarily. So there's a situation where it's necessary that this woman spends time in prison. There are those who are career criminals, you know. There are those who do commit crimes very intentionally, you know. Then they end up in prison. But in the end, even if we put them in prison, have we thought about the children? Are we working then as a society to ensure that the children left at home, then they don't end up in
the same place?
In the same place, so that we don't start saying, oh, this is a family of criminals. Yes, we are the ones who created it. Yes, about single fathers, they're there, but because of the many numbers, for us as Justice Nest, we want to deal mostly with women, because naturally, women are the nurturers, they are the carers. So we haven't gotten to working with the single dads, but the numbers, when you look at the numbers, they're not as huge as when you talk about single mothers.
Okay.
Yes.
Someone is saying, hello, a question to the guests. From what you do, how do you make sure the people you help will not go back to prison? Do you work on their behaviors? Allow me to read another one, because I think you had touched a bit on that. What is the best way to cope with stigmatization of children with imprisoned mothers? And another one, hi, I'm Lucy. Say hi to Miriam and good work to her as she continues doing what she is doing best, and God bless you. This one is just commending you for the job that you're doing. So on the stigmatization of children, you know, what's the best way to cope, you know?
I think it's right from the prison setting, for if we are talking about the ones with their parents, I think it's really hard to totally protect them. You know, one of the officers was telling me, you know, one of the reasons I don't like these children here is because they really get the culture of the prison. So what happens when an officer gets into in a ward is that they are quickly to arrange themselves to be counted. And so you find these children as young as 3, when the officer comes in, they are quick to say, Madam, we are all in, we are 15 of us. Already at 3, what are we teaching them? You know, what are they learning, their childhood? What are they carrying with their childhood?
And this is where we get to end Good Morning Kenya for today. Thank you so very much to each and every one of you who has been tuned in. Thank you, Miriam, for joining us for this conversation. And you're doing an amazing, amazing job with Justice Nest. So this is where we end. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing. My name is Vivian Degwa. Goodbye.